Bring a Trailer podcast. Too much Van Halen.
Too much. I saw some great cassette tapes down there. Those are are those going with, are those included?
Those
in the
were
Integrale
extracted
sale?
from the Integrale.
I remember Zach got you one of those.
Zach got me several of those. I don't know where, at a garage sale.
Okay.
Amoeba Berkeley.
Amoeba Berkeley. Are they still in business?
Yeah, Amoeba's still going. Or maybe it was Rasputin. They're both still there.
But the question is, are they included in the Integrale sale?
No. Maybe they should be.
Maybe they should be.
Led Zeppelin 2 moved over to the Audi WAG. It's in the deck right now. In the Audi
Good to
WAG.
hear. Yeah. How's that Appetite of Destruction doing?
Appetite is around downstairs. You saw it on my desk.
I for
Now
sure
that Ray's 14, he's allowed to listen to it.
Appetite.
Rolling start or standing start?
Well,
Welcome to the Bring a Trailer podcast. I'll take the words out of your mouth.
Let's just introduce everyone who's here. Alex, Beck, Zach, and Randy here in the podcast room once again. We've got a couple interesting topics to talk about today, but I thought we'd fire up with where you guys have all been. Zach, you're back from the Overcrest rally. You want to give us an Overcrest of the Overcrest?
Yeah, we can Overcrest download. I had a wonderful trip to Santa Barbara last weekend too, if you care to hear about that at all.
Sure, I would love to hear about that.
Other than that Supra I was showing you, that was pretty much the highlight. It was a new 2023 Supra in the livery of Paul Walker's Supra in Fast and the Furious, orange with the green
livery on the side.
Yeah, green ninja samurai sword down the side. It was awesome. It really,
what color do you think it was underneath that? This was a wrap. This was
it's
a 100% wrap
here.
Oh man, I hope somebody had committed to full repaint
Supra with that. Oh my!
It's a 9-second car. You owe it to me.
So good.
Where's Dom? What does that mean? What's following it? Like a new Challenger with a wrap of like
a Hellcat red-eye jailbreak.
Totally. Those can go head to head.
Just look out for semis.
All right, last call, guys. Last call.
Last call on what?
A demon joke.
Oh God, yeah, I know. Last call, demon.
Missing a descriptor on there. Oh yeah, but Overcrest was awesome. For those that don't know, they put on events throughout the country. One of the most interesting things about them to me is the locations that they pick, because we do a lot of California-centric rallies, but they shift. So they've done Oregon in the past. This was them revisiting Utah this time. I heard
Idaho. So don't forget Idaho, man.
Sorry, I'm a coastal guy.
We all forget about.
Everybody
Idaho.
forgets about Idaho, but they did a great rally in Idaho that I actually did 2/3 of until my engine exploded. But yeah, that's a good one.
I don't want to blow up their spot, but Arkansas was floated for a potential spot in the future. So for me, I got to drive out to Utah and eastern Utah. I was almost to Four Corners. It's this town called Mexican Hat, population 31.
What a wonderful name for a town. I wonder if that's why they decided to start it there.
Mexican Hat, and it's called Mexican Hat. Don't mean to take the words out of your mouth, Randy, because of the rock that's shaped like a Mexican hat there.
Like
a sombrero hat.
It's a sombrero.
It's so cool.
Wow. Awesome.
Anyway, those guys are great. They basically spin the globe and they're like, where's the coolest spot? And they're like, boom, we're going there. Which is pretty impressive, right? Because they get a bunch of people to go into the middle of nowhere to meet up and drive, which I think is fantastic.
As great as the roads were, getting out there was still probably the highlights for me. Getting back was. Getting out there was a little weird.
Okay. How many miles each direction? SF to Mexican Hat.
I think I did.
How many people are typing
we all mapped that and we're terrified about it, but you guys actually did it. I did it partially with an airplane and partially with a pickup truck.
It's at least 1,000. I think I did around 3,000 miles total across
Holy crap, man.
4 days.
4 days?
Yeah. So I split it up on the way out. I went here. I stayed a night in Vegas and then completed the drive. And then the way back, I just bombed home. But the way out, there was a bunch of rain through the Mojave, which was interesting. Wasn't expecting it. And then I had this gas stop in this town called, it's either Boron or Boron.
It's Boron.
Fancy.
Oh, yes. Yeah. 20 Mule Team Drive. I know Boron well.
How do you know it so well?
That's where I grew up. That's really close to Ridgecrest. That was that huge mine that you drove past is a borax mine. So that's why it's called Boron. And teams of 20 mules would haul the borax into LA.
Interesting.
20 little mules pulling a wagon before they had a railroad.
Well, it looks like they hauled everything out of this gas station I went to as well, because I got there.
The shells were blown out?
It was a shell that was blown out and also a Boost Mobile.
Oh, wow.
I've never seen a gas station cell phone provider combo. And we got there and all of the shells were eerily picked clean. And then the teller had like bulletproof glass up there.
Heck yeah.
And my adrenaline level started to spike a little bit. I was like, oh, I should probably grab a water and get out of here. And thankfully the selection was so low, I only had one option. But that was probably the highlight of getting out there.
Boron.
Yeah. Boron.
Or the low light. Either the highlight or the low light. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, I live to tell the tale.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Positive.
Yeah. Interesting vibes there for sure. Definitely 97 Civic sedans with big Gretty muffler crowd.
There is nowhere between Tehachapi and Vegas that's not interesting to stop. Like that 400-mile stretch is all solid.
Yeah, I think that's a super accurate comment. Yeah, so got out there, and then once you get to Utah, it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Huge red rocks, awesome desert scenery, and the route kind of zigzagging between northern Arizona and southern Utah for a lot of it. So that it was cool entering Arizona, entering Utah, entering Arizona again, back to Utah, and seeing that a little bit of difference in scenery. All the rocks down there are so great. I got to cruise through Monument Valley, which I'd never seen before. I think you took that route too, right, Randy?
Yeah, I went out to meet him. I didn't drive an old car, but I went out to meet him in the middle of nowhere because I was really inspired and stoked by the sort of kickoff of the thing, which they do pre-dawn in Monument Valley. I mean, you can't even make it up. It was incredible. And 3 miles maybe from the Mexican Hat start is the pull-out and scenic overlook that is named after Forrest Gump, where he stops running.
Oh, that's Monument Valley at the end.
Full-on Monument Valley at the end, right? He's running with all the people behind him, and then he stops, and everybody gasps, and they say, "Why are you stopping?" And he's like, "He's done," and he walks home or whatever. Like that turnout's called the Forrest Gump turnout, and there's all these Cruise America vans and tourists taking pictures. I was like, "What is going on?" When I got there, there were all these crazy tourists looking at it. So anyway, that was a couple miles away, but that vista. Granted, it's a tourist trap now, but when we went through it at 5 a.m, there was nobody there, and you're cruising through that, and it is the gazillion-dollar vista. Like, it's totally unbelievable. And we got to drive through that. I'd never been there in my life. I bet Zach hadn't either. It was cool.
Where was your starting point, Randy? How far did you drive?
I went to do some stuff in Phoenix and then drove up from there. So it's 5 hours.
You still had some driving
from
to do.
Phoenix. I did some driving. So I cruised up there and I went to the Overland Expo in Flagstaff on the way back. So that was kind of, I looped in a couple things.
But you did or did not run the event?
I didn't run the event. I was there for the beginning, which is at 5 a.m. in Monument Valley, and I was there for the kickoff dinner, which is maybe one of my favorite parts of it. They do a great job with that at some place called the Swingin' Steak. That place was awesome. That place had great food, and they served me. I got there late. They served me dinner at 9:30 at night in the middle of the desert.
Great.
It was killer.
How was the event itself, Zach?
I mean, the event was great. Yeah, we pretty much quadrupled the population overnight there at Swingin' Steak. Randy is such a savage. I have no idea how he is that in him. He was. What were you even there for 24 hours total? I think you flew in.
Less than 24 hours there. I was in Arizona for 3 days, but I was at the Overcrest event for 12 hours.
Yeah, you got 4 hours of sleep and then blasted back to the Phoenix
So
airport.
worth it. I would do it again tonight. It was incredible. Rented a Tacoma from Sixt. I had a Tacoma 4x4. I fit right in Flagstaff. I just blasted.
Man, if you could bottle that energy up and sell it.
Man, I don't have many. There are peaks and valleys in my life, right? And that was going to be one of the peaks. And I was like, I'm doing this.
What's the look on the faces of like the Swinging Steak staff when 80 cars come rolling in, all hungry from their long treks? Are they like prepared for that, or are they just like shocked?
Yeah, they were awesome. I mean, they're super polite, super accommodating. For me personally, I would be like overwhelmed and kind of frustrated. It'd probably be my least favorite day of work of the entire year. But yeah, they were great, super pleasant. It was hamburger steak or flank steak. Those were your only options. Side of beans and a little salad. I asked for extra salad.
Always a Zach's move.
Don't know that
2 salads? 3?
Actually accommodated, but she said, just pretend it's extra salad. All right.
They were terrific. But the organizers are like, hey, we're going through all small towns. Like, be nice to these people.
Of course.
Be patient. Don't be some city jerk. Yep. Right. And that works for half the people, and it maybe it doesn't for the others. But they also want tourists and want business, and are appreciative. So anyway, it's a little bit of tension, but it works really well because they preface like, okay, you're going to a town population 5. Like, let's be cool to these people.
Absolutely,
which I think is great.
What was the mix of cars like?
The mix was awesome. There were a bunch. I guess I say a bunch, but there were probably 4 911 Safari cars.
Oh yeah, Randy sent me a picture of some of those. There was a 944 Safari car, I think, too, right?
They've had 924, 944 Safari, but they used to be very Porsche-centric. Well, no, there's 3 organizers, and they all have Porsches, so it's going to steer a little bit that direction. But they also have other stuff, right? One of the organizers has an old Benz that he's brought before.
Which you sold on the site.
Huge shout out to those guys. Yeah, they've sold cars on the site, and we were one of their supporters of the event, which we're proud to be. But they have other cars too, so that kind of sets the tone. But they intentionally are like not too many. Don't want it to be a one mark event, so they accepted some crazy stuff. What was the craziest thing? I mean, the coolest thing I saw were guys with an engine like half torn down on a Porsche 968 in the parking lot at 11:30 at night with flashlights and beers and like making it happen. And that car was there at 5 a.m. running, which I don't know how entire cooling system was laid out in the dirt and then they put it back together.
Did you hear the backstory behind that?
I did not, but I respect when people can slam a car back together 100%. And run an event. But did it explode or what happened?
Turned out it was just a result of running the car at elevation. None of that was necessary.
No, totally unnecessary teardown. Okay,
yeah,
well, they have some stories to share on that. But what was
shed a tear of blood for those guys.
What was the craziest car?
There was a lot of heat. So the Safari cars are just cool because they're really in their element there. That's like such a great car to run an event like this because they're pretty dirt focused. A couple guys did it in a Viper. It was a late GTS, late Gen 1 GTS, so like an 02 red white stripe, but it also had a gutted interior, a cage, and harnesses, which was the coolest car I'd least like to do this event in. Driving to and from Utah would be such a nightmare. They had like full leaf blower headsets on to block the noise. They were beaten and battered and ready to trade keys by the end of the day. There was a Lister Bell. Are you guys up on those? It's the company doing those Stratos recreations.
Oh, okay.
And it had, I think it's the engine that's in the Lotus Evora. It's a supercharged 3.5 Toyota V6.
Oh, did it really? I thought they did Alpha V6s in those, like Busso.
Yeah, so I talked all about the guy. That's one of the engine options. The other is the Lotus option.
Wait, but does it look like a Lister, like a knobbly Lister?
No. This is a Stratos Rep.
This is a Stratos Rep.
Just like a Stratos.
Okay.
Coffin spokes.
You sent me that.
I sent you pictures of those cars. Okay. So anyway, it looks like a Stratos, but you can tell it's a kit because the rims are too big, right?
It used to be Hawk that made those or something?
They were Hawk reps. Yeah, you can look deep in BAT lore, and there's a couple of those that sold, but very unusual.
Yeah. Well, so the third engine option, which I think is the most interesting, is you can do a Ferrari 308 or 328 engine.
Oh.
And because it's a rear clamshell, the belt's like right there. It's actually pretty easy to service and work on, and it probably sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, 308s are not bad to work on because the motor's sideways.
Yeah, that was good. There were 2 E30 M3s. One had an S50 swap in it, which was pretty strong. Any highlights stand out to you, Randy?
69 yellow Roadrunner.
I was going to say, I know where Randy's going.
Down.
Awesome.
That guy, he took off out of the parking lot, and I was just like freaking out. I was like, I must text this to Alex.
Yes,
this is
correct.
America.
Also, it was like sunset and red rocks behind
just
it. And I was like,
burn all the Porsches to the ground. I don't care at all anymore. Like that car takes off second gear pull on its way to Monument Valley. I was like, hallelujah. That guy is amazing. But what else was there? Good number of BMWs. Certainly a little Porsche heavy, but not in a terrible way. A couple GTIs. Early Volkswagen guys are representing. Any other American cars other than the big Mopar? It's light on American. I think it could use a little more. If we go back, the Falcon ought to be there.
Hell yes. Slow pack GTIs in the back. They're the last ones.
It's so weird. It is a little schizophrenic, right? Like GTI next to Mopar. You're kind of like, what's happening? I love variety though, so I'm kind of cool with it. But it does.
Oh, there's a C4 Corvette.
There's some vets. There were some vets. Yeah, that's a good
C4.
Point.
Love it.
Fantastic.
I'm ready.
Those seats, that shifter in a C4.
I'm ready.
Oh, man.
500E was actually pretty cool because it was a squad rolling 4 deep in it, which I would be horrifically nauseous over a weekend like that. But shout out to them for doing it with like 3 of their friends and a driver.
Datsun. There were some Datsuns, 510 and a 240Z that were cool.
But really, we have to shout out Cameron and his Volvo.
Yes, on our staff, one of our staffers who takes a Volvo 122S. Is it an S or just a 122? I don't know. It's a 4-door and it flies, and he's a boss because he takes it out there.
So on the drive out, I met up with him in Vegas. He would leave early in the morning because I got to get my beauty rest, and also that way he knew a support car was coming up behind him. Before he even got to the start of the event, he sheared off one of his struts. So he ran on 3 struts and just 1 spring all weekend long.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, this is the strut mount sheared off. So this is the Swedish metal broke, not the Bilstein metal broke, right?
Right.
I think.
But I have a shot of him just holding up his yellow Bilstein right after, and he did the whole event after it. And one of the highlights of the entire weekend for me was the dinner Friday night. We're hanging out, having beers, and the nice guy, super knowledgeable about BMWs in general, and incredible BMW collection, we're chatting with, who had the S50 swapped E30 M3, just goes up to Cameron and goes, yeah, so what's up with your Volvo? Why is it so fast?
Yeah, that's right.
He was a little upset.
Yeah, it's all fast because it's Cameron. He's like, well, it has a engine swapped from an 83 Volvo.
It has 80 horsepower instead of 70. And he goes ripping by the BMWs, which I love.
I love that too.
Mm-hmm.
We saw him booking out of here, and it was kind of like, you going to make it, Cameron? He's like, what did he say back?
Well, I mean, he's the one driver when he arrives to the office. We know it's Cameron as he arrives, parking outside through the brick wall. You can hear that electric fan humming real hard. We know that Cameron's arrived to work.
Inside exhaust.
Yes, it's very loud. So 1,000 miles on the event, roughly, also?
Yeah, we basically bailed on the last day of driving because we just wanted to blast back.
Yeah.
And Cameron did it all in one day in the Volvo, which was crazy. He left 3 hours earlier than I did, and I still caught him in Tahoe. So with almost 2 hours to go.
Wow.
Yeah.
What route did you guys take
Zach
across?
also fast, by the way.
Yeah,
these
sure.
These guys know how to rip through Nevada.
Yeah, allegedly. What's the statute? When can this podcast come out?
Yeah, don't talk about numbers. I'm just saying fast as a concept.
I don't think they have a police force in Nevada, so I think you're fine.
It really did not feel that way. Yeah, it was my highest averaged maintained speed over the longest period of time.
You took the 80 on the way back?
I took the Loneliest Road.
Oh, you took 50?
Yeah, he's in the middle of nowhere, man.
Dude, that's my favorite road. I want to get back out there so bad.
Okay, I'm down. You name it. That is one of my favorite drives I've ever done.
Isn't it incredible?
Down 50. And one of the other great parts about it was, I think it was Ely.
Yep.
Ely, like completely. That's
nice. When I got there.
I've been there a couple times.
Nice.
When I got there, like completely got there, there was a blue white stripe Viper GTS parked in front of the courthouse. It was kind of stickered up. I was like, what's with this? And then as I cruised into town, it was all C8 Corvettes, C7 Corvettes, and they all had Silver State Classic sides on them.
Oh.
So they're all running trial runs for the Silver State Classic, which is an event I'd love to do at some point.
So it wasn't the event. They were like pre-running the event. This is scouting the event.
Yeah, I think it was Event Scout, but they were still stickered up because I looked and it wasn't the same weekend. So
I love that event still happens. Talking about like no rules, Wild West. Oh man, the fact that that's like seeing a UFO. You like see a Silver State Classic moment. You're like, wow, aren't you guys all supposed to be in jail or dead? Like what, how are these humans still here with their car in one piece? That's impressive.
I totally agree. And I just also really appreciated that it was pretty much only American cars and only Corvettes. It's none of those like crazy modified twin turbo 911 runway cars or McLarens. It's just all a bunch of guys out there in their Corvettes just hauling.
Gunther Works not there, as it turns out.
Not part of that program.
No singers.
That's those are that's a different program. That doesn't involve 3,000 miles of driving.
There's
in
no
4
wood
days.
platforms to put them on to display.
That's right. No one corded up a bunch of lumber.
The last great thing I'll say about Utah and the experience, as Randy loses his mind on that.
That was funny, Alex.
Was the van scene out there is also like incredible. Like all the Sprinter 4X4s that we're selling, that's really where they're thriving and out there and in their element. I feel like maybe we get some of that of some guy camping down by the ocean here, but and every third or fourth vehicle out there on the roads of Utah was one of those vans just touring around.
Have you done the 50 before, Randy?
The 50, the road, the 50?
Loneliest Road in America.
I have not driven it to the extent that you guys are just talking about.
Yeah.
Nope.
I don't know if I want to van life it out there, Zach, maybe, but
No, Nevada, not a lot of van life.
No, that's pickup truck life. That's King Ranch life out there.
It's King Ranch and this feisty lady in a Saab 9.3 convertible.
Ooh,
good for her.
Yeah,
that's an unusual sighting in the middle of Nevada. Where was she headed?
She was trying to dice it up with me for a period of time.
Good for her.
I went to pull out on the hash yellow to pass. And right when I get up next to her, I just hear the from the turbo spooling as she floors it to try and make me not pass her.
Amazing.
It's a great moment.
She bought that on BAT. I bet she's listening right now, Zach.
Yeah.
You guys may have a rendezvous in your future.
That's right.
Yeah. I yelled 16.5 out the window and then dropped a gear and got in front.
Amazing. You've done that one too, Beck? You've been out there?
Yeah, probably half a dozen times. When I went to college in Illinois, I drove cross country before and after every summer, various cars. And then I moved a buddy of mine from the East Coast back here, went through there again. Had to do it twice for him. Once in his second gen Mini Cooper S, which is tough for two guys over 6 feet tall. And then second was a E350 box truck, getting the stuff out of a warehouse in New Jersey because the stuff got stolen.
And you opted for the 50 each time.
We did 80 one time and 50, but most of the times we did 50. Ely is just a great little town that used to be the thoroughfare of people, like all the entertainers going to Vegas. It was how they got there. And so there's just a great scene there of sort of almost like Cars-esque, like in the movie of like that little town.
It totally is.
That is a great place to visit. $1 margaritas out of a slushy machine in the main entrance for the Hotel Nevada. Big suggestion to stop by there at some point.
Okay, Beck and Alex, what's your dream automobile to take down Highway 50?
I want to take my NSX. That's what I want to do. You just did what I wanted to do. I was literally 2 nights ago dreaming again about a cross-country trip, and I never get much further than Ely. And then I'm just like, I just want to stay in the region that you were in. And so I was on Google Earth doing essentially what you just did, Zach, 2 nights ago. So you were pretty darn close to it.
I'm probably going to go R-Code Galaxy.
Oh gosh, you're going to need another gear, dude. You're going to, that fourth gear and what it's got a 411 rear. But if you give a little rear end and a fifth gear, that thing would fly.
That was my idea of the Roadrunner photo that Randy shared was fantastic.
I also don't want to shoot down your fantasy, but what's the tank size on that? Because gas stops were so far and few between. I was really running it dry for a period of time there.
So I did the first few drives I had an 89 E30 Cabrio that I was driving back and forth from Illinois to San Francisco. And definitely that was a stop. Like every time there was gas, it just didn't matter. You had to stop. This is like pre-internet phones. Like we're like holding a map and everything, and you had to stop by anytime you could.
Fallon, you got to go Fallon.
I'll go do this drive. I just mapped it right now. Yeah, you come out of Reno near 80, and then what are you? Fernley, Fallon, Austin, Eureka, Ely, whatever that is. Great Basin National Park, and into like the gut of Utah. You're south of 80, way south of the Salt Flats, right? You pop out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, 80 takes you to Salt Flats. There's the border town there is called Wendover.
I have overnighted in Wendover.
I have many times. My father's favorite hotel in Wendover is the Red Garter.
Oh gosh, I didn't stay there. My old man and I stayed at something more tame than that. But what's that like?
It was the thinnest towels you've ever had in your life. It was not all the light bulbs worked, but I think it was about $24 a night. And there's a line painted down the middle of the road.
There you go.
Where you go from Utah to Nevada.
There you go.
And that's basically, I think a lot of buses come in from Salt Lake City to drop off people who are trying to sneak into some of the casinos.
Yeah, for sure.
For the night. But that's a great run. And you go through the Salt Flats, which I've actually never done that before, is actually stop off there for one of the events. I would love to.
Well, Wendover's the HQ when it's race time at the flat. So we stayed there and the whole place is full of hot rods. They're all drinking beers in the parking lot at Wendover. And I bought the keychain, and the sign says records will fall. And it's sick. It's a very, very.
There's also great aviation history too. There's all kinds of cool stuff there.
Is that right? Where they're like bombing areas?
That's where they trained the B-29, the Silver Plate B-29 crews that dropped the atomic bombs, which were a special unit. And it's where they filmed Independence Day. If you remember the big,
Welcome to Earth.
Yeah, the big base and Will Smith punching out the alien. Some of the greatest stuff ever put on film. That's all out in Wendover.
Wendover getting a lot of airtime on the BAT podcast right now. We need to go back. I mean, that's always the same weekend as Monterey, which I actually think is kind of great.
It's fantastic.
But you got to pick your allegiance, And so one year, my old man and I picked that, and we went out there. But Wendover's cool.
So are you convert, Zach, to big open country drives across the western part of the United States? Now that's like my dream. That's all I want to do.
Yeah, I don't think I was ever not converted, but it is an interesting philosophical, what do you really enjoy about driving?
Totally.
And there's something about that appeals to me in the way that driving on track or even driving on like rallies and weekends just don't hit the same as big open road, just cooking through the desert.
Mm-hmm. What was your longest day? Did you do 1,000-mile day?
Yeah, the drive back from Escalante, Utah, I think was no, maybe I'd have to map it, but I think that was 1,000-mile day.
Oof, that is a lot. That's a lot. Do you know what your biggest day of driving you've ever done is, Beck?
I've definitely done multiple days over 1,000. I did Jersey to San Francisco in 2.5 days once.
Oh my goodness.
So we would have done probably 1,200, something like that.
Oh, fact check. It was like 870 miles.
That's still a freaking ton. I was going to ask you guys how many back-to-back 500-mile days are you willing to do, and you guys are all like ready to go. Like I don't know if I could do too many 500, 600 milers in a row.
I couldn't do it in Cameron's car, but in the NSX,
I was going to say miles count for 1.7 each if you're in a car built before 1970.
Totally. And if you have a car with no roof, it's even worse. That's amazing. Do you know what the longest day you've ever done is, Randy?
I don't, but I'm not a total, wild man like this. That sort of drive, I probably would have broken up into two, whatever Zach did. But I don't know. I've probably done 600-700 in a modern car, but that's not anything in this group that even makes it on the podium.
I know, totally. Well, part of it is I like all the little town. Like I like to stop in the little towns, like Ely. Like I definitely took a little drinking tour of downtown Ely when I was there, and it was fantastic. There's all these little old saloons, and you're soaking up the miner culture from the 1900s. So I like that stuff.
That's an amazing town. Doing the Highway 50 all the way through, it's amazing how you can go through these sort of saddle crests, and all of a sudden you can just see forever. Mm-hmm. And then you drop down into its sort of long, deep valley. It's not like a pinch point. And then you're just on a straightaway for miles and miles.
But you're driving across, it's like you're crossing valleys.
Correct. Yeah, right. Because Nevada basically is, at least that portion of Nevada is
north-south valleys.
And you're north-south, very wide depth, flat forever. And then all of a sudden you got to climb. I did it once in a buddy of mine. We were coming back from school in his Hyundai Accent, I think it was called. 2-door, little, cheap, barely could get out of its own way kind of car. Had to turn off air conditioning on the uphill portions of those climbs. That was a less prestigious.
My buddy used to call that downshifting.
Turning off the AC?
Yeah, in his V6 T-Bird, he would turn off the AC and you could feel the motor get a little more power. And he's like, just downshifting.
That was high school in the Prelude, man. It was like the supercharger button. You're like, I got to race this E36 M3. Let me click off AC and drop it in a second.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
We've never listed one of those Hyundais on BAT. I just checked back. Sorry, that's blacklisted. The nearest thing is an Elantra that sold for $12,500, which is terrifying. But
an Elantra for 12, that must have been the lowest mileage one. Don't look up who clicked accept on that one.
It was sold, no reserve. Gone.
Well, that sounds like an amazing event, Zach. I am super jealous of you, and I'm extra jealous of the Highway 50 experience. You guys got anything coming up? Any of the three of you? Any other events coming up? We're kind of in event season here.
It's go time to start talking about stuff the BAT's doing for BAT's events. We've got an event in Tacoma, Washington. When the heck are we going to get this podcast out? That's on Father's Day. That's a meetup Father's Day.
Yeah, at the
LeMay Museum.
A week from today.
We need to be talking about that at the head of the show, so people can get out there. We'd love to see some people, and that's going to be a monster one. They have a parking lot there apparently that's like a runway. It's gigantic. So anyway, there'll be a lot of cool BAT cars there. And that same time, the other side of the planet, we'll be in the Netherlands, in Europe, with a meetup happening at the Zandvoort F1 circuit in the Netherlands, which is our first foray into saying hi to folks and our users over in Europe, which is exciting.
Fantastic. You'll be there, I presume, Randy?
I will be at those. Yes, absolutely. It's going to be exciting. We're going to have a few folks. I will not. Can't be in both at once. Right. I will not be in Tacoma, but I will be in Europe. And then we got another calendar going through the summer of other cool stuff. So it's summertime, man. It's event time.
We're rocking and rolling. We got Randy's Lancia Integrale live on the site. That's what we were referencing up top.
I just sit here and refresh, seeing what people are saying about the Delta, but it seems to be
going great so far. And that local partners video is awesome.
Is it?
I thought it was really cool.
I think it's cool too. I watched some of the early versions of that. I need to go rewatch, but there are other like driving videos of the car, and obviously, the local partner that helped list that car is great and helped out quite a bit because needed to get that baby live. You guys have seen that car in the office for years and years, and it's time to let it set sail.
You have any regrets about it? Any sadness?
No, I'm ready to make some moves.
Yeah,
it's time to make some moves, some buys and some sells. Let's go. Let's do some things, not just sit static. So I'm excited for that.
Oh, I can't wait to wash your 959 when it shows up.
Yeah, same. Yep.
12 scale. Yeah, it's going to be so sweet. It's going to be so cool. I got a deal on it.
Do we get to race it against your F40 when that gets here too?
Oh, gosh. Oh, my goodness.
Clutch dumps.
Right.
Third gear pulls.
Yes, you do. Actually, yes, you do.
Yes.
When both those cars show up on the same day, you get to race them both.
Totally. What about you, Beck? Any driving events or car events you got planned for the summer?
Road trip out to Grey Eagle at some point with fam.
Where is that?
It is about hour northwest of Tahoe in the Sierra.
Okay.
We'll be out. It's what's great about it is it's gravel roads to get like the last few miles, right? Because you think you got to load up this big SUV and with your big knobby tires and feel like you're actually using the thing, but then to actually have to go on gravel road for a good few miles to get to your actual spot, your actual lodge you're staying at is like a very reassuring, like, yes, I do need this.
Okay, good. That'll make you feel good about the choices you've made.
Yeah, that'll be in the Xterra, so should make it.
I think Xterra's unsung hero. When did Xterra production end? Is that a classic yet? Can you put a historical vehicle plate on that thing yet?
Yeah, no. 2015 final year. Pretty shocking that they didn't think to like come up with something.
No replacement, zero replacement.
When now like that's like the hottest thing is like how sort of fake off road my thing can be.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of shocking. Mine's a 2013 Pro 4X model.
Look
Very
out.
fancy.
The step and the rear bumper. That was a game changer.
It was.
I remember that.
And the bulge on the rear hatch door, because of course you needed the bulge in order to fit the first aid kit.
Yes, that's right.
On the inside of the rear door, because otherwise you can't fit a first aid kit in the car. Pretty good driver. I mean, it's still a 2010s Nissan, so the interior.
It's a body on frame, though, right?
Correct, body frame. It's a Nissan Frontier short wheelbase, essentially, 4-liter V6. Works great. I mean, it is the most fun thing to take out there and not have to worry about it. Kids in the car seats in the back.
Great.
We've sold 8 of those on BAT. I always search whatever we're talking about. I love it. But we also have 8 usernames where people chose to put Xterra in their username. There is Xterra. There's Xterra Chris. There's Xterra Eric. There's Xterra Man.
Oh, that's a missed opportunity. Xteric.
Xterix 06 Xterra Guy 00. If any of you are listening to the podcast, please check in with the status of your Nissan product. But anyway, I love looking that stuff
This
up.
is reassuring. I was always worried I would never be able to sell this truck on BAT.
Oh, no.
Seen that other Xterras have been
Maybe
on
with
site.
300K miles, it's going to be a problem. But these are some nice low milers that we've sold. I actually respected that vehicle. I just thought it was different, which is, world of sameness, just like doing weird stuff. Like I'm not an FJ Cruiser guy, the modern one, but like I respect the fact that they exist and the guy didn't just buy a standard RAV4 or whatever, it's like a step up and it's cool.
If you kind of want like a vintage Discovery, but better reliability, it's
there are some disco vibes in an Xterra.
Sorry. We got to take an oxymoron break. Vintage Discovery.
Ooh.
I don't know if I agree with that statement.
Yeah, that's a problem, isn't it? They're old though, dude. You guys were I was listening to the pod with you guys, just Alex and Zach talking a little bit ago, and you guys were talking about how do your NSXs feel old or classic or are they new or whatever? Like pretty soon Beck's car is going to be like, 10, 15, 20 years old. I mean, is that a classic car? I don't know. It's crazy to think about, but I like those, Beck. I think that's a cool off-road little themed SUV to go rip it up. That's not what you usually see.
The question of when does a car become a vintage car will always be a subject for debate.
It's such a movable
If anybody
target.
ever has an answer, please let us know. Email us at podcast.
And we can't let the podcast always converge on that. It's like the tractor beam that sucks us into that conversation.
But to me,
let's move on.
NSX still feels like a modern car.
Okay. End of discussion. That's it. Zach wins.
Cruise control and air conditioning. But 25 years old used to be the standard, and that's 1999. 1999 cars don't feel.
I think it has to do with, it's just like with music, like whatever you were raised with, that's modern. Right? If you saw it was new when you were starting to become aware of cars, so it's a rolling answer for different people.
Correct.
Pearl Jam, classic rock.
Yeah, you hear that, Tupac? You're on the oldies station.
Total oldies.
That is total oldies.
California love. Listening to my grandpa's music. Back simpler times when it was just the Crips and the Bloods.
It was just West Coast versus East Coast, buddy. Did you take the NSX on any dirt stages?
No, I didn't.
Good choice.
Car's too low.
Yeah, good choice.
I sort of did. I parked up this hill and I basically just shoved the nose really deep into the dirt. And I said, that's probably enough for me.
Driving it into the office is almost like a dirt stage if you're driving across the city streets of San Francisco.
Worse.
It's totally worse. We talked a lot about events, but I actually wanted to hit you guys with some questions of the week. Are you down for that?
Let's do it.
Dug up some cool ones. And
I thought QTW or QOTW?
QOTW. But then I added an S to the end, so it's QOTWS because it's multiple of them.
Actually, off-road anecdote for my weekend trip to Santa Barbara. The traffic was so bad on 101. There's so many accidents. I pulled off, and you know all those fields that you see on the side? Where
which section? What part are you on?
I think it's before San Luis Obispo. It's definitely before Paso. But you're driving down 101.
South of
Santa
King
Maria.
City.
This is Santa Maria.
It's probably the south of King City, north of Paso. That
He said south of Slow. So anyway,
but I meant north.
Yeah. You meant north.
Before
then
you
you're
get
right.
to Yeah. So it's all those fields where, I don't know, strawberries or what have you. And the traffic was so bad, I pulled off and drove through one of them and didn't realize how dense and rocky it would be when I got on it. So I did lightly off-road the Ferrari this weekend, and pretty much everyone in the field was standing up, staring at me, going, what is this guy doing?
That must have felt good.
I've never heard a story like that.
It's actually pavement, though, right? But there's so many tractors and trucks and stuff that go over it that it has all these clumps of dirt everywhere. So it's like half dirt road, or you're talking full dirt road.
I was in the fields. I was like pretty deep there.
Like, and
it started as pavement.
Dude? And that's better than traffic. Like, what are you doing?
I just can't handle sitting in traffic. I'll take any excuse not to.
What gear were you in?
I got into second for a little bit, and then it got really rough, and I had to drop it back down to first.
So you're going first gear Central Valley, like ready to go. Like that's your route home.
Yeah, getting it dirty. So didn't shear off any oil pans or anything, but man, it was.
What's your sidewall height on that car?
Oh, they're 25 or 30s.
Nothing. It's like nothing, right? Man, you are
low.
Animal first gear.
Crazy. That is crazy. That is a good anecdote.
Yeah,
that's definitely better than the question of the week.
I wish you guys could have been there. I really wish somebody was watching from 101, just seeing this silver car with the plume of dust behind it,
with the challenge grill falling off the back. Pay extra for that.
Wow. I wish there was a photo of this. My gosh, somebody there must have had a phone.
I don't know. Yeah,
well done, Zach.
Well, we're really getting into the economics of people working out there, but yeah, sorry, you jogged my memory of a good weekend experience. Anyways, back to the questions.
No, let's talk about off-roading Ferraris all day long. 308 rally car. That's what we need for Overcrest.
More sidewall on a 308.
Totally. All right, you guys down for question of the week? Should we do a couple?
Hit us. You're teasing. Great. Just hit us.
All right. I have from kind of broad ones that will be easy to kind of let's start with a kind of more recent one. Favorite badge script? That was a recent one, and a whole bunch came to my mind immediately. I love the Lamborghini Miura kind of devil badge script. That's probably my I love those, matching the bull's tail a little bit. But there's a lot of really good ones out there.
Badge script. Who's going to jump in there? What? I don't know. I'm thinking.
I like it when people do custom stuff too. That was another one I was thinking about. On the way to Indiana, I read a car magazine, and somebody's doing a BMW 2002 EV conversion, and they call it a 2002 TE for electric. And they, milled a new badge to look just like the TII badge, which was pretty cool.
Not to sound too basic, I'd probably go early 911 badge before it becomes into the center of the rear.
The angled
hood.
one.
The angled one. Gold,
angled one is good.
And at a sharp angle going up. Yeah, I like those ones a lot.
912 too had that.
Yes,
that doesn't count though. 912 doesn't count. 911.
It counts for 60%.
If you're deaf, if you can't
quoting an earlier podcast,
if you can't hear the Volkswagen engine, maybe it's the same.
Volkswagen's got to have some good ones, right? I'm trying to think back, right? Some of those things on the back script of a Beetle or a bus or some of those numbers.
On the theme of O2s, E9s also had a really nice automatic badge for when it was an automatic equipped car. Those are pretty rare.
Wasn't that on O2 automatic?
Yeah, O2 and E9s.
Yeah.
Got to pull that badge off unless you're trying to fake people out.
55 Vet, first with the V8, where the V in Corvette script on the side is bigger.
That's a deep cut.
That's a very strong one.
I like that because they introduced the V8, right? What's that? what year?
55.
55 only.
And that's still the original body style, but with the 265
Single
V8.
headlight. Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
I want that car almost just for the badge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, kind of pedestrian, but the Bel Air badge on the rear 3/4 of a Tri-5 Chevy is pretty strong. I'm a Chrysler weirdo, right? So I'm just like, that car has some interesting fonts and scripts. What else does?
I mean, just the idea of how much your opinion of a car can change just based on the badge. Like, I like that little aesthetic touches like that. Those actually make a car seem quite a bit cooler to me.
I also love badges that advertise new technologies that are not necessarily like crucial to the model of the car.
We need a podcast topic on that.
Oh man, transmission
double overhead cam VTEC, Zach. That was how I first heard about double overhead cam. I was like, what's dock, Dad?
Yeah.
You know,
Twin
when I was a
cams
little
for
kid.
sure, yes.
Yep.
Yep, the big stickers on the side of the twin cam 16 Toyotas, right?
Oh,
that stuff.
yes.
That stuff's cool.
Yes.
But man, I was going old fashioned. I'm like 4 decades behind you all. You're jumping to VTEC. I was thinking of like turbo hydromatic. I'm living in the dark ages. But yeah, that's some cool stuff.
I got to marinate on badge script, but Suzuki GSXRs or Gixxers. That's just such an iconic model livery on the side of those. Also, honorable mention for the Volkswagen Up with the exclamation mark, like it's shouting the model name. I always love seeing that one before.
Oh, that's interesting. I was re-listening to one of our podcasts and was embarrassed to hear myself talking about how much I liked the XL1, and the Up has the same motor as that. Those are our hooligan motorcycle.
We got motos outside. I love that. You had a reference to that in an earlier podcast, and I was driving to work listening to it, and it was a little out of context. So I think we have to explain to people that we're in an industrial area, and there's a moto shop that's killer that's next door, and so every once in a while people just rip it up to about $8,000 like while they're warming it up. So we get to hear that.
Stoked on my Gixxer comments.
Perfect timing. You cued it. You made it happen.
Oh yes, you totally did. You manifested.
Not a badge, but one of my favorite thing about 80s Audis is that it says Quattro, which is a great font in the defroster in the back window. Yes. 4000. Some of the wagons had it, different stuff. So when you hit the defroster, it melts the logo in the back window. And I think that's unbelievable. And these days, probably only 2/3 of it actually melts. So everything's broken. But when those first came out, I thought that was a killer, sort of clever feature.
That is awesome. That is great. Let me hit you guys with a couple others. How about, here's a good one. Because I don't think I know the answer for any of you. And I've talked to you all so much about cars over the years. What car did you learn how to drive stick on?
Rental Jeep Wrangler in Hawaii.
Did your dad?
Yeah, you pulled off the road. Speaking of pulling off the road onto the dirt, there's this like dirt lot. And he's like, you try it. You see if you can park it on this little dune and just fry the pressure point, going nowhere up and down, and don't use the brakes.
#rentals.
Total #rental boom. And it was what I've seen the exact truck on BAT. It was red, and it was like called the Islander edition. You know this?
No.
There's a sticker of the sun and like birds flying or whatever on the half doors.
Aren't they all white?
There's white and there's red. This one was red, but this was like the first.
There's the answer to your badge question. The Islander
edition, which I was like, oh, Dad, we have to get the Islander edition right around it. But then I was 14, and I got to sit there and like fry the pressure point of the clutch. So anyway, that counts.
That's amazing. Zach, what about you?
The first car I ever drove stick on was a '69 Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah,
and then after that was like a day thing. Then it was just Honda Prelude the entire time. I actually took my driving test in the Honda Prelude.
Well done. You took yours in a stick too, didn't you?
Honda's driving test, no.
Oh, okay.
It's a terrible story. Driving instructor's car, long story, blah, blah, blah. Saturn sedan, terrible.
Okay.
But they're no longer in business.
Twin cam,
full disaster. Yeah, VTEC all the way. But dude, I love that story about you doing the V-dub, but Hondas are so good for that. My grandparents had an Accord with a stick in it, and I got to drive that car. Those are just Honda Acura of that era. Just killer.
Easy. Yeah, I pulled up to the driving test, and the woman looked, saw it was a stick, and said, "You sure?"
And you said, "Get in. Here we go.
I got this."
You immediately went to go 4-wheel drift. Whose Beetle was it, Zach?
That was my aunt's '69 V-dub, which she still has.
Amazing.
Yeah. And she has a Austin Healey Sprite.
Whoa. Yeah. Very sick. What about you, Beck?
First car I drove stick in would have been actually my dad's, now mine, 78 911 SC Targa.
The car that you still have.
The car that I still have. I probably pestered him forever to teach me how to drive stick. We did it in a parking lot in the Presidio. It wasn't terribly successful because I remember I didn't ever feel confident in it. But then I really learned how to drive stick on my first car that I owned. Bought it for $600, an 87 Alfa Romeo Milano that I bought from a priest.
Milano. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He's got some ties to Italy and Latin and whatever.
He loved Italian cars. He actually had a Spider, a 92 Spider, I want to say. And then he had this Milano that I bought off of him. He was actually going to donate it because it was in such bad condition. But then he felt bad that he didn't end up donating the cash. So he just asked me that I donate the cash instead. So I had to write a check to the, whatever scrap company that was going to take this Milano. But yeah, drove that down 19th Avenue, which was a horrible choice to try and get good at green light starts. Had to back up into driveways while rolling the car because I couldn't get it off the line. But that just, destroyed that car. Ended up blowing a head gasket on 280 after high school one day.
Nice.
Which my parents were thrilled with because they were very afraid that I was going to do my first drive across country in that car.
Amazing.
I've never sat in a Milano. I've never opened the door in a Milano.
Same.
You guys ever have any Milano? I love that Beck has Milano experience.
No, I've only wolfed their cookies late at night.
Pepperidge Farm, baby.
Pepperidge Farm 75s.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's what we're going to call that.
Yeah, we had a great 75 turbo on the site last week, I want to say.
Yeah, it didn't hit reserve.
Didn't hit reserve, unfortunately, but it was a great example. I mean, it was, again, with Milanos, you're kind of all looking at the Evolution version, thinking oh, that's what my car is like. But at least you've got a Busso in there, and that was still enjoyable. 5-speed definitely gave me plenty of issues. At one point, the rear brakes would not release when it was in a parking lot.
That sounds good.
They're inboard on that car.
Inboard off the transaxle. Yeah. Very cool. I also liked the car a lot because it felt sort of the switch gear layout felt very aircraft-like.
Sure.
Had switches up on the ceiling, as well as the handbrake was a U-bar as opposed to a single stick.
Oh, so the U-bar pull-up
correct.
Thing is like in a roller coaster or
It was
something.
A very Star Trek, let's go. You would grab it and then release it, pushing it down.
Yeah, man. Smash your fingers when you push it down. Yeah,
totally.
It's so perfect.
I taught a lot of people how to drive stick in the 912 that's downstairs on the 915
That's
transmission.
crazy.
Taught my sister. No, I taught
Peers,
my sister how to drive.
Adults, girls. Who'd you teach?
Taught my girlfriend. Taught my friend Drew.
That didn't last. That did it.
Even more
She
recently.
split. Yeah, she's gone. I don't want to learn how to drive stick on this old car.
Totally.
More recently, you taught Robert how to drive stick on that car.
God bless you, Robert. Well, people actually do. It's easier to teach somebody who's never driven a stick how to drive that gearbox than somebody who knows how to drive a stick. And they're like, whoa, is second gear really that far away from first gear? It's like all the way down by the seat.
1 to 3 is tricky on a 915 if you're not used to it.
It totally is pretty vague. I taught a lot of people how to drive in that SI Civic that we had. I taught a lot of people.
So what was the car you learned to drive?
My Ghia, which I sold on the site.
There you go.
Yep, 13 years old, out in Cantil, California, out by the Honda test track.
I have some fantasy of having my kids have their first car be an air-cooled VW, but I think that it's so Stone Age now. Is that even responsible to do that
I was thinking
all?
of giving my son my Civic Si. He really wants it. And I'm like, is that the equivalent of having a Volkswagen in the 90s?
I mean, it probably is, except for it can do 140 miles an hour, right? I mean, it's just
on Highway 50. It can. I had it at the Rev. Just cruising.
Allegedly.
Well, it was 5 years ago now.
No.
No one's coming after me. I've been holding on to this one. But let's just do it. What's the best? This is so broad for a BAT question of the week, but it's hopefully will QOTW. Best factory turbo car.
Oh gosh,
that's many cars.
Best.
That's What are the metrics here?
Oh, we can come up with our own. We can invent our own metrics. I would say first off, you got to kind of go back a little bit, maybe pre-2000s. Everything's turbocharged now.
So you're not going to say Corvair, Turbo, Monza, Corsa, whatever.
The very first car that popped into my head.
It's not the best of anything. It's maybe the first, but it's certainly not the best. And it's not even the first, but it's early. What else?
I mean, my mind immediately went to 930 Turbo, and it's hard to do better than that because it's early and influential and iconic.
You're talking 76, 77 non-intercooler? You're talking...
That's the one I would put on there, but any of the...
R5 Turbo is better than that car.
R5 Turbo's up there, dude.
Unilaterally.
That's up there.
Better.
I would say that's up there for sure.
Unless you want AC.
Totally.
Other than that.
F40 is turbocharged. That's kind of early turbocharged.
We're going to serious rich dude cars. What turbos more
Not
mainstream.
early Saab,
Saab
900
turbo,
That
900
might be,
turbo.
There's probably an argument to be made that is the greatest.
Maybe you're going really expensive, 959s and 280 GTOs.
But what are the first kind of common? What's the
I
first
think
like super mass produced turbo?
My mind goes to the 80s is kind of like, wow, the turbos now are very fast and very efficient, but the 80s is when the word turbo became an adjective for cool or good.
Yeah.
So I kind of hone in on that era. R32
right.
Skyline, just how dominant they were in racing and how like almost a cheater car became, but that's not all motor. That's a lot of the chassis and all-wheel drive system.
SVO Mustang, greatest turbo
SVO Mustang. There's some Thunderbirds to sprinkle in.
Merkur,
Sprinkle in a little Merkur product, right? I think that's absolutely right.
Got to go Cosworth, add in some Sierras and some Escorts there too.
Totally.
I mean, all rally stuff. So, I mean, Audi Turbo Quattro Coupe, right?
Well,
I mean, back to
Audi's also brought turbo.
This is going to get edited out because I keep going back to 80s Audi product. But, I mean, Audis with turbos on them.
But along with Saab, are those probably the two cars that brought turbos to the masses? Saabs and Audis, probably.
I mean, Benz diesels needed them badly.
Diesels are out. That's part of you want to set some kind of limits to this.
I love turbos. I think they're fun to drive. I don't mind if they kick in like later on older cars. Like my dad had a turbo Corvair. That's why I brought that up. Bought and sold on BAT and
maroon. I remember it well. That's how I met your dad before I met you because I recognized that car from the site. It was at the start of the Snowball Rally.
So anyway, crazy stuff like that I think is interesting. But yeah, your mind does go to like supercar stuff now is all taking advantage of turbos. But the early pioneers of turbo, I think there's some Pontiacs, weren't there, in the 60s or some weird stuff that had
I think there was
turbos on them.
People are going to be upset that we can't remember this, but I think there was a turbo on an Olds, maybe.
Was it Olds?
Yeah, there's a 50s Olds with the turbo.
Not 50s, 60s.
I'm pretty sure he's right.
Not 50s.
I think it might be 50s.
First turbo, Google it pronto.
I mean, BMW.
I'm arguing 62.3 era.
2000. Oh, that's probably right.
Come on, guys. We can't argue with the best here.
No, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I say we.
Oldsmobile Jetfire.
Yes. Year?
1962.
Oh, Randy, right on the goddamn money. That's Never argue with Randy.
It was an Olds, though. I said Pontiac. I was wrong, but it's an Olds.
Jetfire, which is a fantastic name. Mm-hmm. It's also, that's a great one. Sorry, Zach, you were going to say something.
Nothing good.
What'd you see today? Nothing good.
Nothing good.
Okay.
Nothing good. Yeah.
Anyway, I love the questions of the week. I think they're fun. I have
much more. I'm like trying to save them because they're so good.
I'm trying to decide if I like being surprised by them and having to think out loud, or if I I need to come prepared.
Yeah, the badge one stumped me. We could have done better than that. I think there's so many interesting badges out there and interesting names for features and all sorts of badges on the dash, not just the side or the back. I was just looking at a Ford that we just listed, right? It says twin I-beam on the side. Yeah. I mean, it's so cool, right?
So
what are we even talking about? You tell that to like a kid today, they're like, what are you talking about?
Speaking of which, Twin H on Hudson's is a really cool badge. That's a really cool badge. Twin H.
Yep.
All right, let me hit you guys with one more because this one's pretty fun. And I don't, again, maybe we should have prepped on it, but favorite vehicle with more than 4 wheels.
I
immediately went back to the Auto Union Hill Climber with the dually.
Oh, that counts for multiple? Yeah,
it does. It sure does. That's got 6 wheels.
Sandwiched together.
That's got 6.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Dually pickup trucks is the big one, or big rigs and that kind of stuff. But
I wish I liked airplanes enough to answer.
Oh, totally.
747.
Yeah, my dad's buddy was a 747 pilot, and he would always tell people when they asked him what he did, I'd drive an 18-wheeler because they have 18 wheels.
Pretty solid.
It's pretty great.
I'm not a huge 6x6 guy or any of that sort of weird stuff, right? I would usually rather have the 4-wheel version of like all of it, the Overland stuff, the G-Wagon stuff.
Well, double axle is a very different program than putting 4 wheels on the same axle.
Yeah.
Those are 2 very different programs.
There's military trucks that I actually like go in the other direction, which is people take the 6x6 and chop them and make them a 2-axle.
Uh-huh.
They call it deuce and a half, right? 2.5 ton spec military vehicle. It's kind of quasi similar to what Indiana Jones dragged underneath, right? Like that sort of era truck.
Deuce and a half,
and then people chop it, and it's actually it's like a monster pickup truck once you do it. It's like a toy. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty cool, but that's totally non-answer to the question.
Chop up a duck. You need a short wheelbase duck.
Oh gosh, those are terrifying. There's bad stories about
already
those.
Not seaworthy enough.
Yeah.
Anything come to your mind, Beck?
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
Beck's like,
this is the wrong crowd.
I could go the other direction, fewer wheels.
I was thinking about that too.
Little band's motor carriage action, and then whole world of motorcycles.
Just
obviously.
give me all Honda ATC products.
Oh, totally.
Right now you're supposed to call everything an ATV, but when you search on sites and marketplaces, ATC, you get the ones that were
Big
outlawed.
balloon front
No,
tire,
the ones that were outlawed because they kill you, right?
Yes.
And those, my buddies, their parents had those in cabins and stuff, and I got to ride in those. And
So danger zone.
those are so cool, though. But they're so cool. 3-wheelers were so cool.
What's more dangerous, that or a Reliant Robin?
Good question. The Top Gear made that sort of famous. I've never seen one of those in person. Have you?
No, never.
There's a structure around the Reliant Robin.
Yes.
Yeah. So your limbs break inside the structure instead of outside.
You need to wear the arm restraints that drag racers have to keep your arms inside.
All that stuff. I'm not a big Reliant guy, but all the Honda Motorsport product I think is awesome.
Completely agree.
Do you have any 6+ wheeled things?
Yeah, you're not allowed to ask us this stuff and then non-answer. You have to have a point of view.
I mean, totally. I actually the first two things I thought of were that auto union and a deuce and a half. I love military vehicles, so I think I would actually, if I had a big piece of property, I would love to have a deuce and a half.
29 Palms. Get a few acres in 29 Palms.
Well, or maybe outside of California, so I can have a 50 cal in the back and shoot it into the hillside.
My grandpa trained in those things in 29 Palms in the service.
That same guy who was the 747 pilot, Rick Grether, shout out, definitely not listening. He awesome dude. He was in the Army and he drove a deuce and a half around Laguna Seca when it was in its old configuration. Trained at Fort Ord and drove it around Laguna Seca when he was in the Army.
That's cool.
Is fairly strong.
That's what the rest of the racers, including Zach, think I am like on the track.
You're the guy.
I'm about that guy's speed, right? They're like, some huge, slow, old vehicle, get him out of the way.
Randy also just misses the Andretti hairpin and barrels through the parking lot.
Go wherever you want.
He's like, I drive the old configuration.
Totally.
The only 6-wheeled thing that ever came to my mind, other than 6x6 G-Wagons, that sort of thing, the F1 car, the Tyrrell car.
That's a cool
dude,
one.
that was the answer. Well done, Beck. That wins.
2 steering racks, right? Because both.
2 steering racks because the wheels turn at different ratios because the distance from the center of the car is obviously different for each one. So you have to turn at different amounts. Great shot in the movie Rush by Ron Howard over the cars as it's passing through in 1976, 77, I want to say is that year. And then you just see how each bodywork, every chassis is so different. And you think oh man, what a great era in it. And then all of a sudden you're reminded, oh yeah, one car had 6 wheels on the grid. Talk about allowing engineers to sort of do what they want to do. That's amazing.
Do you think anyone in the pit crew saw that car unveiled and just quit on the spot? They're like, I'm done.
Forget it. It was either the greatest idea or the worst idea. Did it place? Did it ever do well? I
think it got outlawed.
I'm
looking at it right now. It had 1 win. It was on pole once.
It had a win.
It probably broke
14 podiums.
Tyrrell
out of 30 races. So that's a pretty good hit ratio.
But it was frontal area they were after.
Yes, correct.
After
reducing the size of the front
Shadow
wheels.
did too, but they just kept 4 wheels. But a bunch of those Shadow open wheel cars, and also I think some of their sports racers had little tiny front wheels.
But
Terrifying.
Shadow also had a much worse success rate than
I'm sure.
I don't think they ever got pole.
I'm sure. I mean, my buddies and I in Indy this weekend, we were talking about how much we regret that era when there was so much variety on the grid. It's like, hey, if you can invent something cool and you think it's going to be faster than other people, then bring that out.
Not allowed now. Not allowed.
Everything's spec. I mean, in IndyCar, they literally are the same. I mean, there's 2 different engines, but other than that, in that little 500 race, some of those cars have V6s and some have V8s. So they have pretty considerable different, in sprint car racing, quite a bit different setup, although the chassis are all the same.
Yeah. And even there was an article, I think just today, maybe Road and Track, that said, the FIA wants F1 cars to be visually distinguishable from even their livery. Please even just give us a livery we can see that's different.
Totally.
And it showed a pack of 10 of them at Monaco. And there's a little bit of blue and a little bit of dark gray blue. And then there's it's all the same. You look at the cars, you can't tell what any of them are without a close up, except for the crazy Senna, like McLaren went bananas and has a cool looking car. I thought that was interesting. Not only is the design all look exactly the same, the colors look, for the most part, all exactly the same. And you're just kind of
the McLarens were also the easiest to pick out at the Indy 500 because they're, again,
different.
Orange and blue.
Papaya orange.
Different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for doing this. I'm going to save some of these for next time. What a pleasure, as always. And thank you to everybody who took the time to listen to this. If you have feedback, questions, concerns, podcast@bringatrailer.com is how you get a hold of us. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time.